everybody, I'm State Park Interpreter Jean at the Antelope Valley, California Poppy Reserve, live broadcasting during the COVID-19 stay-at-home order so we can bring the park safely to you at home while we want everyone to stay home and stay safe during the pandemic. So I have recruited my son Eli, 10 years old, to be on the camera. So we're practicing social distancing. There's nobody else around, cleaning the equipment, not touching my face, all those fun things, washing hands. Hope you are too. So I wanted to start off with some of the questions that you guys have had that were not answered on previous live sessions. If you do have a question, Eli will be monitoring the feed there, the comment feed, so he can throw some questions over to me. So in the meantime, while we're getting started, oh yes.
40 people are watching already.
All right, 42 people. Awesome. Hi, everybody. All right, so some questions from the last couple of live broadcasts. How long will the poppies last? Well, you can see behind me, I've got a few poppies back there, but most of the poppy bloom is actually ending. Our peak has passed this week with the heat. It declined very rapidly. So we have a lot of this green that you see out here is poppy seed pods. So let's see, in fact, do I have one close by? Of course I don't have one close by. I will find a poppy seed pod. Let's see. Here, Eli. Yeah, let's release and walk over here because I know, oh, here's one. Right down, here's a couple of them. These are the poppy seed pods. They get about twice as big as that. Yeah. 100 people are watching. Awesome. So, yeah, this is a new poppy seed pod. They'll get about this big. They'll have about 200 seeds in them. So a lot of, in fact, like right here, Eli, if you can get let's see if we can move it on that. That's a poppy plant that has a whole bunch of seed pods on it. Those little stalks that are sticking up are seed pods. There you go. So let's head back over here. So the answer to that question, how long will they last? Last year we had poppies blooming until July, but that was exceptional because we had a lot of rain last year. This year we had those really late April rains, so we'll probably still have poppies blooming. But to answer another question that came up that ties into this, how many different colors are there? Well, the poppies over the course of the season change color. They're actually the same flower, the same species, but as the plant itself ages during the poppy season, the flowers that the plant is putting out are smaller and they're also more yellow. They start getting yellow around the edges, and then because they're actually yellow with orange on top. So as the plant is aging, that orange spot gets closer and closer to the middle of the flower as those new flowers come up towards the end of the season. So in July, we had tiny yellow poppies. It wasn't exactly a poppy bloom. Plus, everything around it was all dead, so it wasn't exactly, like a field of poppies until July. Yeah, question?
How many different species of poppies are there?
That's a great question. So it depends on if you are, well, okay, so of California poppies, California poppy is a species. So there's only one species, but we do have different subspecies. There's 4 different subspecies of California poppies. Here in this area, we have 2. We have the annual type, which is more common in desert, arid areas, but we're very close to the mountains here. You want to pan over? We've got the mountains. Don't trip on the tripod there. The mountains over there, those are the San Gabriels. And in the mountains, you find the perennial poppies. So they're like a bushier poppy. It's a plant that comes back every year. That's what a perennial is. And so we have both kinds here, annual and perennial. But we don't have a lot of those perennials because we are mostly desert here where we are at the Poppy Reserve. But there's 12 different species of poppies in the Ascholtzia genus in California. So you have things like bush poppies, little Mojave poppies. They look a lot like poppies, but they're not the California poppy. They're either a slightly different color or different size. Question?
Approximately how long have these poppies been here in this reserve?
Yeah, so that was I wonder if you're the same one who asked the question. I'm getting to you. So California poppies have always been here, basically. In 1855, John C. Fremont came over the Tehachapi Mountains and into the valley, and he saw these, what he thought was a mountain of glowing orange rock. So, you know, he was one of the first people, one of the first explorers to come through here, through the Antelope Valley. So he rode with his horses and his exploration crew over to the where the poppy reserve is now, the buttes here, the Antelope Buttes, and found it was covered with California poppies. It was not an orange rock, as he had thought from the Tehachapi view. But in terms of how long they've been here before that, we don't really know exactly, because the California Indians did a lot of habitat management for thousands of years. So they would do things like burning fields to maintain a healthy crop every year of edible foods. There's a lot of different kinds of plants that grow here. Several of them are edible and were used by the local California Indians. So it's possible that these buttes here were maintained as a wildflower grassland. If they were not actually burned to maintain that, it was probably, you know, because we were surrounded by what used to be Joshua trees. We used to have Joshua trees all around the park, in the area here. But so the California poppies are, you know, they're really well adapted. It's very well draining soil. It's very dry. It's the perfect conditions for the poppies. So that's why they love it here. And they've probably been here, you know, since the end of the last ice age, about 14,000 years ago. So, you know, we don't really know going back that far. Questions? All right, so let's get to, that actually knocks off a couple of my questions here. Are we open? No. So that's why I'm here. We're not open because the trails are too narrow for people to do social distancing when they're passing. And also, this is not a park where people can come to locally to exercise. This is a destination park. And when we were open, even just limited opening with not allowing vehicles, but just allowing people to walk in, it was still encouraging people from other regions to get in the car together and drive out here. And, you know, that increases the potential for transferring different things from different regions. So it's not currently open at all. And we don't have a time that we're anticipating opening. It's really just every day it changes. You know, we never know when it's going to open the next day. So, but we will definitely put it on social media and our website and everything. You will find out when it opens. When it is open, it's $10 per vehicle, $9 with a senior 62 or older on board, $5 with the California State Parks disabled discount card, which you can get online at the question.
What happened to the Joshua trees?
What happened to the Joshua trees? Well, this is the desert. We have about 350 days of sun a year, which is exceptional. And before this area was settled, the water table was only about 5 feet deep. We didn't get a lot of rain, so it's a desert, but we got a lot of water into the valley because of the mountains around. So it was ideal for agriculture. So when people started to come out here to the Antelope Valley, they, you know, wiped out the Joshua trees and started growing alfalfa, dry farming, barley, things like that. So this was actually a major agricultural source for alfalfa and other grains for, well, unfortunately for about 10 years, because then there was a huge drought in the 1890s, and you know, all the cattle died, all the farms went under. And so if you come out to the valley now, you see a lot of these wide open, you know, grasslands. There's some rabbit brush. Most of those areas used to be Joshua trees, and it takes that long, like over 100 years to recover. So there are patches where there's Joshua trees, but you can see it's along property lines, and those are areas that were not farmed. Arthur B. Ripley Desert Woodland State Park is 7 miles down the road to the west of us, and that is a virgin stand of California juniper and Joshua trees, and a whole different group of wildflowers. So if you are, and that's actually open, it is walk-in only, always has been, only walk-in, day use only. It's just down the road. If you go, it's about 210th Street West on Lancaster Road. Lancaster Road actually goes through the park, and you can park on the road and walk into Ripley. Yeah.
How did the Poppy Reserve become a state park?
Well, it became a state park because Jane S. Panero, who our visitor center is named after, Jane Panero, she was an artist. She came out here to the Antelope Valley with her husband and hated it. She came from Pasadena, thought it was just this big, ugly, dry desert, like a lot of people view the desert. She started teaching herself watercolor painting to pass the time, and then that helped her to realize that this is actually an exceptionally beautiful area with wildflowers, and there's a lot of diversity if you look closely. So Jane started to notice that these wildflower areas were disappearing, and there had been a study in 1977 where it was determined that the west end of the Antelope Valley was the most consistent poppy-bearing lands in California. So she lobbied to make this area into a state park. So the Poppy Reserve opened in 1976, and it's a state reserve, which actually is a higher level of protection than a regular state park. You're not allowed to go into any part of the park unless you are on the trail. We provide the trail so you can see what the place is here to preserve without destroying it. So yeah, that's how long the park has been here. Yeah.
Is it common to see more bloom on the valley floors versus reserve hills?
It changes every year. It all depends on where literally when you're in the desert, a thing that I love about the desert is you can see these rain squalls from hundreds of miles away. You can see on the other side of the desert big black clouds with a column of rain, and where those columns of rain go, it completely changes where the poppy blooms are, the wildflower blooms of any kind of flowers. Sometimes they'll sit in one place for a while. Sometimes it'll be in one place and then the water runs off to another place, so we end up having flowers bloom where we didn't actually get a lot of rainfall. So there's so many different factors involved with where the flowers bloom. In general, if all other factors are equal, like if we didn't get these rain squalls, we just had an even coating of rain in the same places all over. We start off with the south-facing slopes blooming first, and then the bloom kind of starts to fade on the south-facing slopes because that's where the sun's shining first in the wintertime. And then it goes down to the flatter areas, and then towards the end of the season, when those are all going, the northern slopes start to bloom because they've been the most protected from the summer heat or the heat of the sun the whole time. So it shifts. So when we have a super bloom, though, that's when everything is covered with flowers at the same time. And to have that, you need to have rain starting early in the season, coming periodically to maintain the growth of the plants that germinate. Too much water doesn't help the poppies. They don't like too much water. So there's a lot of different factors to get everything right for a super bloom. Let's see, rattlesnakes. We haven't seen a lot of rattlesnakes this year. We usually have different snakes every year. Sometimes it's a big year for rattlesnakes. Sometimes we don't see any and we see a lot of gopher snakes. Or sometimes we see a lot of all different snakes. This year we've seen pretty much none. I finally saw my first rattlesnake this week, one. So we were expecting to see a lot. We actually saw a lot of baby snakes of various kinds in January, so we thought we were going to have a big year for snakes. Maybe just because it's been so cold, they haven't been out. And now that it's warming up, they're starting to come out. But I have not seen that many snakes this year. But again, every year is different. Let's see. Butterflies. Yeah, we had butterflies. We had the painted ladies come through. I've only seen a few of them this week. What time of the day is the best time to see the bloom? The poppies close up in the afternoon and at night. So if you come out here in the morning when it's cold, they're all curled up. Around 10 o'clock, and if it's like at least 55 degrees, they start to open up. Around 4:30 in the afternoon, they close up again. Question?
Will the solar farm threaten the poppies?
So green energy does have an impact on our parks. We have, unfortunately, what happened was a long time ago. I don't know when, but there were high energy transmission lines that came from the Tehachapi wind turbines through the Antelope Valley down to Los Angeles area. So all of these green energy farms want to be close to those transmission lines to reduce loss from their solar fields. And unfortunately, that is also where we have some fantastic wildflower blooms. So a lot of the areas around the reserve are becoming covered with solar panels. And the reserve itself is not going to be covered with panels, but one of the great things about the reserve is the view. You know, we have this really beautiful viewscape here, and also a cultural landscape, a rural scene here that a lot of people come here to get away from the city, to go up on the hills, get a nice view, and we're getting more and more of a view of solar panels. So there's other threats involved that we're tied into. I hear that birds will see the solar panels and think that they're a lake and stop on their migration and get broken legs and wings. I have to look up the data on that. I don't know if, so don't hold me to that, but that's something that you can look up also. And also underneath the solar panels, wildflowers don't like to grow. This is a desert, so they like sun, and under the panels it's shade. So that definitely affects our diversity here. Question?
What environmental factors influence the poppies opening and closing?
Well, the flowers are not beautiful for us. They're beautiful to attract their pollinators. So it just happens to be we see their colors and think that they're really beautiful and that they smell great. So poppies open up for their pollinators, and if it's too cold for their pollinators, then there's no point in being open and getting shredded. The flower itself is actually only in the bloom stage for 2 or 3 days, but they close up if it's too cold for their pollinators, which are not bees. There's not very much nectar on the flowers, so it's mostly just the pollen. So it's little beetles that like to eat the pollen that end up also distributing the pollen between the different flowers. Another question?
The poppies are darker colors this year. Is that possible, and why?
So as I had said before, they're 2 different colors. They're yellow with orange on top. And there are some instances where you do have a darker poppy because that yellow didn't happen, so it's really just orange. At the beginning of the season, they're also darker because they have like the full-on color. They haven't started to fade over the season. So they do start off darker. In terms of how dark they are compared to other years, I think just every time we see them, we forget how vibrant they are. And seeing them again is always a surprise because they are so shockingly bright and beautiful. So I can't say really that the flowers have been darker this year, but I have definitely noticed that they've been more lush because of all that rain that we got in April. So that may affect how they look. But if you looked at pictures from different years at the beginning of the season, a lot of them, they're actually pretty much the same color at the start of the season. Question?
How are the owls clover this year?
Oh, owls clover. Yes, I was going to answer that one too. We've had some great owls clover. I'm actually in one of only 2 places in the reserve where I can get out of the wind. This is the picnic area. We've got our picnic tables right down there. You can see our empty road, only a car or 2. What you can't see is down the road. There's actually a bunch of cars lined up on the side of the road, not social distancing. But there's only so much that, we can't enforce. So the owl's clover, that likes water. So the only place where we have the owl's clover in good numbers is down at our spring on the North Poppy Loop Trail, and it looks great, but it is crazy windy over there. So I tried to do a video there yesterday, and my tripod was blowing over, so so I'm kind of hunkered down. The other spot where it's not windy, the very top of the park, Katanamook Vista Point, on the lee side, the east side, the trail comes up just before the peak, and that's a little pocket where you're protected from the wind. Let's see, just in case that was going to be the next question. Let's see, butterflies. Can you drive around? All right, so we do have the stay-at-home orders. We do want people to stay local. We understand that it is hard to stay in the house, and we do want people to get out and get exercise. We don't want communities mixing, basically. We're trying to keep the communities separate to keep the virus from spreading into new communities. People are driving around, and we hope that they are staying away from each other. The areas around the reserve are private property, and it's up to the landowner to enforce trespassing. So there's a lot of people who are just walking around on the private lands taking pictures in the poppies. Now, we actually had an amazing bloom across the entire valley this year. We had poppies across the entire valley. So even though we did have people coming out that were probably not local, people were able to stay spread out because the poppies were everywhere. The roads going through these areas are county roads and they are public, so that's not a problem. How long are the poppies? Do we spread seeds? No, this is a state reserve, and this is Mother Nature. We actually don't want people to spread seeds here. The seeds that you buy at the store are not from here. They're grown at seed farms, and like in Texas, I think the ones that we sell, well, what we used to be, or I think maybe the ones that they sell at like Home Depot and Lowe's, like the containers of them, they're grown in Texas. And when you get more than a quarter mile away, you actually start to get genetic diversity changes. So we don't want people to buy seeds and spread them at the reserve or even in the Antelope Valley, because that's mixing other potentially subspecies of, with ours. Question?
Is it okay to fly drones near the park?
Near the park is, as long as it's outside of the park, it's not our jurisdiction. Drones are prohibited in the airspace above the reserve. The FAA does give jurisdiction to the traditional land, the agency that has traditionally had the jurisdiction over the land. So the 500 feet above the reserve where drones, that's as far as drones can go, that's also under our jurisdiction by the FAA, and we don't want drones over the reserve because, number one, it's a visual threat for our wildlife. They look like a predatory bird. And also people come to the reserve to get away from technology and not feel like they're being monitored. So there is a reasonable expectation of privacy when you come out to a park. You're going to be in the background of somebody's pictures, but having a drone and that buzzing going over your head while you're trying to, be in nature is a major intrusion on people's experience at the park. So those are a couple of the reasons. There's also safety reasons too. It doesn't happen very often, but if one does, have a malfunction and fall, they can cause fires. I realize that's not really a big thing, but it has happened. But it's mostly for the people who are here to enjoy it, and also because this park was created to preserve the ecosystem. And we do have animals that are disturbed by drones flying over. Was there another question?
No.
Okay. We do get people who are outside of the reserve that think it's okay that they can be outside and then fly the drones in. Our airspace above the reserve is all restricted. So if you are outside the reserve over someone else's property, it's not our problem. It's the landowner that can deal with that. But yeah, please don't go outside of the reserve and think that you can fly it in, which people think is okay. There's misinformation out there about that. Let's see, tribes. What tribes do we have here? Tribe is a federal designation. We say cultures because to be a tribe, you have to have a lawyer and a lot of money to get recognition from the federal government. So the cultures here, there was actually 120 different cultures that traded through the Antelope Valley. And most of them were not federally recognized as tribes. So, but they had different languages, different cultures, different traditions. But in this area, the Poppy Reserve itself was mostly Katanamuk. Katanamuk people were this area, and west of here, like the Grapevine area, they were related to the Chumash. They're still around. They're up in the southern Central Valley now. But also the Tataviam were in the mountains over there, and boundaries shifted. So Tataviam people are also still here too. Yes, question.
When was the peak of the bloom this year? Is it different from last year's timing?
Yes. So traditionally our peak has been mid-April, but it has definitely shifted to late March. There is, every year is a little bit different, but there has been an absolute shift in our peak every year from mid-April to late March. This year, because of the rain, we didn't have enough rain for a really great bloom by March, so we were expecting a moderate bloom, but then we got a bunch of rain in early April, and so we kind of went like meh, and then rain, and then woo! So we ended up having a really great bloom, borderline super bloom, but you know, a lot of it was actually fiddleneck. You know, people come to the poppy reserve, they want to see poppies, but most of what you're seeing behind me, like off into the hills, that's all fiddleneck, which is a native plant, so great to have it here, but it's not the poppies that people want to see. So yes, it was a fantastic bloom this year. It was, I would say, great for poppies, not a poppy super bloom, but in general, I would say it's a super bloom for all different kinds of wildflowers, even the ones that nobody cares about. All right, any questions? More questions?
Nope.
No? No? What? Really? What else is blooming? Fiddleneck. Let's see, we've had, right down there, we've got a little purple flower. Oh, question?
Are you open?
No. So, yeah, we are closed, and we have no idea when we're going to open again, but the bloom is pretty much ending. So by the time we open, there won't be a lot here to see. Question?
Was the bloom last year a super bloom?
So last year was the apocalypse. Wait, or was that the 2017 bloom? Poppygeddon. So we had Flowergeddon. Last year was the Flowergeddon. The apocalypse was 2017. 2017 was our first super bloom with social media, and it was a madhouse. Last year, we're in 2020, right? So 2019 we had the It's just poppies, it was everything, and it was much better handled. Thank you to everybody who was helping us out by not encouraging people who were posting photos of, you know, their selfies crushing flowers. It made a huge difference to have that social pressure, and you know, in 2017 everybody wanted their Instagram photos in the flowers, and it was destroying the habitat. 2019, when people were doing that, everybody was like, you know what happened last time, it destroyed everything, and that made a huge difference. So thank you for everybody who spoke up, and definitely changed how it went. I think changed the culture a little bit about flowers and what they're used for. So let's see, other things that are blooming this year. So yeah, we have owl's clover down there. We have a lot of, in fact, let's go for a little walk. We'll release here. Don't trip. Okay. Oh, actually here's a flower I want to show you. This is a poppy that's got that yellow starting to happen. So you can see the orange is going towards the center of the flower, and it's got the yellow around the edges. So this plant, it's starting to get a little old. It's starting to, you know, show signs that it's declining. Here's a seed pod. Here's a seed pod from it, also about half the size that it will be. So just an example of the colors changing over the season with our flowers. Let's see. All right, so here's another flower. This is, my hands are a mess. This is called red-stemmed fillory. It's actually a Mediterranean plant. It's not native, but it's not invasive. So it's not a big problem like we have with some of the other plants, like these grasses. All of these grasses are non-native European invasive grasses. But Eli could just stand up, and we're going to turn around over here. There's some grasses out there. You can see kind of waving. Those are California native bunch grasses. Zoom in on there. And that is what California was covered with before the settlers came in with animals and feed and these non-native seeds that came with them. So those are our California native bunch grasses. All those other golden rolling hills of California are the non-native invasive grasses, and you just can't get rid of them. There's no good way. All right, so down here we have forget-me-nots. A couple different kinds of forget-me-nots. A flower, are they all gone to seed on this one? Looks like they've all gone to seed, but right next to it, this is a super tiny. That is, here, I'm gonna try to zoom in here. I think you need to step back a little bit, Eli, for it to, wow, my hand is huge. Yeah, okay. That is a forget-me-not flower. Super tiny. So we have, I think, 3 different kinds of forget-me-nots. We also have popcorn flower, which is, it's a white flower. Oh, over here is some blooming of that other kind. Not the popcorn flower, but this is another kind of forget-me-not here. Slightly bigger than the one we just saw. So let's see, what else do we have blooming out here? Whew, it just got warm. There's some more of those forget-me-nots. And we didn't have a lot of the Phacelia this year. Phacelia just kind of is usually an early season plant. We are going to get up into the wind. So hopefully, oh, look at this. All right, I'll get to the question in just a sec. I want to show you this. These are, those are wild dandelions, desert dandelions, and they are going to, they're related to your, wait, are those desert dandelions? Oh gosh, okay, now I'm questioning myself.
Cream cups?
No, they're not cream cups. Oh, but you know your cream cups, very good.
That's what someone said.
Oh, no. Darn it, I thought Eli learned something. They're not cream cups. I'm gonna have to look that up. All right, here's the defining characteristic though. This is the flower that has a red spot in the center. I will look that up and I will post it in the notes later. We also have over here some, there's some kind of bluish purple flowers. We'll zoom in. The bluish, let's see, are you on it? Where are they? There, yeah, you are on it, okay. Those are pygmy-leafed lupin. We have a few different species of lupin here at the reserve too. Those are the tiniest ones, and they're related to the pea family, but don't eat the seed pods, they are poisonous. But we also have bush lupin here, but it's pretty far. Well, you can see it off in the distance, way over there. But it's super windy over there. So, all right, there's a question.
What are the controlled burns on the poppy reserve?
So we've tried controlled burns, and we haven't had any great success with getting rid of those non-native grasses or non-native plants. So we tried it and it didn't work.
Another question.
But we do get wildfires here, so of course we do study, you know, we document the effects of the wildfires, and you know, hoping to figure out how we could use fire to manage the non-natives here. So, question.
What social media did you have, including TikTok?
So we're not on TikTok that I know of. We definitely don't have an official site, but Eli, do you want to go back on the tripod? So we are on Twitter. Eli, slow down. Oh my gosh. So we're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and we also have our official webpage. And let's see what else. Oh, I just started a YouTube channel, so I'm putting a lot of videos on our YouTube channel. So it's all of our IDs are. Oh, looks like my husband is here to pick up my son, so we'll wrap this up in a couple minutes. So yeah, you can check everything. What was that?
Silver puffs.
Silver puffs. Thank you. Silver puffs. Thank you, Margaret. Yeah, the flower we were looking over there, those are silver puffs. I think that they actually are related to dandelions, but those flowers are very temporary, and then when they close up, they open up and they look like a huge dandelion puff. So they're called silver puffs because on a dandelion, you know, you've got the seed, and then you've got the little thingy that sticks out on the top so it flies away. On silver puffs, it's white on this part and the stalk is black, so it makes kind of a silvery effect. It's pretty cool. All right, so do we have any other questions? All right, so we will do this, we will definitely do this every Saturday and maybe now and then in between. But thank you all for watching. I hope you are staying home and staying safe and getting through this. We'll definitely be letting you know when we open up again. We may have a soft opening where we only allow walk-ins, or we might just open up. No idea the timing of anything. So it all just depends on just what happens every day. So, but we want to flatten the curve. Thank you for staying home and keeping that from spiking, and it'll speed up the process of recovering. So, thank you, Eli, for being my camera crew today and relaying the questions. And yeah, if you have any other questions, I will look at those and answer them in the next live broadcast. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you for watching.